speak for my dean colleagues that nobody would have ever thought, none of us, we've all been faculty, we've all taught, none of us ever thought we would be in this position to be asking students to think about a fee. It's just not who we are. And certainly we don't like it. But it's where we find ourselves. This is coming from the deans. It is specifically to address um, the situation that we find ourselves in now in the state and in Sacramento. It's at Sacramento State in particular. So when I taught here years ago, it was very different. Our graduation rate was 8%. Students were out the door, lined up down the hall to get into classes. It was heartbreaking. We then had the Graduation Initiative 2025, and for the last 10 years or more, we've had one-time funding coming from the chancellor's office to increase our graduation rates, to increase the number of sections that we offered so students could get through in a more timely way. And in doing that, we hired several lecturers to cover those extra sections. And we are now in 2025, and that money is sunsetted. It has stopped. We don't have the one-time funding anymore. Um, and I think that in addition to the fact that we have a large deficit coming from the state of California to the CSU as a whole, 37 million of which is coming to Sac State next year, has led us to a structural deficit where we are right now. So we don't have any reserves to fall back on. Essentially, our recurring costs are moving faster. They're increasing faster than our recurring revenue. So we came together as deans to really just open up the door to students and say, here's something that we can consider doing to address this issue. And Dean Datweiler is going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute, but that's how we got here. We have increases to staff and faculty that really needed to happen, but weren't really that were not funded. So we're in a place where, let's go to the next slide, where we have the structural deficit. And so the fee addresses that exactly. This is the only fee that we would have on campus that would be specifically for academics, specifically in academic affairs. There are a lot of other fees for the well and health and athletics and a number of other things, but this would specifically be for your classes and your professional development. This slide really illustrates this is to address the funding challenges that I just discussed. It's really about academic resources directly. And today, I think you all know this, students aren't just competing with our students aren't just competing with students at Davis or local students. We're competing now in the global market, and we want to set students up to be as successful as you possibly can be. And this will help to address the deficit that's keeping us from doing that. Let's flip to the next slide, please. There are a number of these student success fees across the CSU. It was years ago, I think the chancellor's office is the one that named this. We didn't name it the student success fee, but that's what we've got. That's what it's called. If it should pass at Sac State, we would be on this chart somewhere between the red and the blue line. So that's about where it would fall. These are the campuses that already have a student success fee. Many of these, actually all of these, were passed well before COVID. They've been in place long ago, like back when I was referring to earlier when the graduation rates were so low. We are the only campus that is talking about doing this since COVID. It's a tough time to do it. We really recognize that. And Shannon, Dean Datweiler talk a little bit more about what it really means if we do it now versus if we don't, because we really do see that it could be more expensive if we don't, but we want to talk to you more about that. But this is the chart that shows you kind of where we would fall and who else has one. We do not. This would be the first for Sac State. Next slide. And so what we're asking, this is a referendum process. So this is a vote, a student vote, which is different than the way the fees were passed last summer. That was an alternative consultation process. Here, we realize the time isn't optimal with the end of the semester, but we wanted to get it in when students were still here and would have a chance to talk with us about this. It's an up or down vote taking place next week, 13th and 14th. If you vote yes, it's a fee of $360 a semester, $720 a year, essentially. And if you vote no, it's no fee. So it's a yes or no, up or down vote for one single fee across all colleges. Um, and then Dean Datwiller is going to talk a little bit more about the specifics of the fee.
Good morning or good evening, everyone. I'm Shannon Datweiler. I'm the interim dean for the College of Natural Sciences and Mathematics. So I want to talk a little bit about what a yes vote would give you as a student. So if you vote yes, this would result in a $360 per semester fee beginning in the fall semester. If you've already registered for classes, you're well aware that the number of class sections that are available this semester is much lower than what we've had in the last several years. And as Dean McGuire said, this is largely because of the budget deficit that we're facing at the state level. So the state is reducing funding to the CSU system. That is causing us to have to reduce the number of class sections that we offer. So next year, academic affairs is facing a deficit of, or a budget reduction to our baseline budget of $18 million. So a yes vote um, would help us to restore some of the academic programs and instruction that we're having to reduce right now as a result of the state budget deficit. So most of this money in the next several years will go to academic programs and instruction. So this is going to support the academic mission of the university. And this fee, the student success fee, would have money that can fall into either that category, academic programs and instruction, or student success infrastructure. So this would be the only fee at Sacramento State that was focused solely on the academic mission, and it cannot be used for any other purpose. So what we would see is that there would be an augmentation to the current class schedule for fall 2025. And this would also ensure that we were able to um, have a class schedule for spring 2026 that meets the student needs. Excuse me, this funding can also support supplemental instruction, such as supplemental instruction classes, PAL, uh, peer assisted learning um, section. So any kind of peer support programs, tutoring for students who need help with uh, high DFW rate classes. This is primarily where the money will go for the next couple of years until we weather this current budget crisis. In addition to this, though, I should also mention that um, one of the um, one of the other priorities for the student success fee would be to also maintain student services for students in um, in areas such as the university library. Um, the university library is scheduled to have reduced hours over the summer and into the fall semester because of reduced budgets. So this would also help to support the library and library resources for students. So in addition to academic programs and instruction in the library, this would also support student success infrastructure. This could allow for augmented advising services, career services that ensure that students are ready to enter the job market upon graduation. And this also allows that provides some money that could be used for technology upgrades or equipment upgrades. And in a science college, that's something that actually is very important for students in STEM to make sure that you have up-to-date equipment and you're using and you know how to use equipment that you'll see when you enter the job market. So a couple of important things to mention about the fee. First of all, there is a 3% set aside. It's a return of financial aid. So 3% of all of the fees would be set aside, and students can apply for those funds if they can't afford to pay the fee. And that would be administered through the CARES office, similar to the financial aid set asides for other student fees. 3% will also be set aside for disability services. And this is not just to augment or support the Disability Access Center, but rather to augment services in a way that is truly impacting students. And the way that this money would be used to impact students will be determined by students, and Dean Shaw will talk about that in just a couple of minutes. One final thing about this fee, written into this, there's an annual adjustment of a 2% increase per year or the consumer price index, whichever is lower. And this is to ensure that the student success fee doesn't become um, something where we don't have enough money to actually meet the academic mission of the university. So we want to make sure that this is something that's going to keep up with the rate of inflation. All right. Now, what would a no vote do? A no vote would result in no additional student success fee. And the implications are that we are unlikely to have funding for additional class sections for the fall 2025 semester. And there is a very real possibility that we will have to make even further reductions to the spring 2026 schedule. The one caveat here is that if the state is able to restore funding to the CSU system, that may allow us to add additional sections of classes. But what we do know is that further cuts will happen for the 26-27 academic year. We know that we have an $18 million reduction for the 25-26 academic year. And we already know that we are going to have an additional $6 million reduction to academic affairs during the 26-27 academic year. So we're facing multiple years of budget reductions that are the result of the state not funding the CSU system in the way that it has previously. Just for a little bit of context, as I said, we're taking an $18 million reduction this year. We anticipate that if the student success fee passes, that will generate about $20 million per year. So just to give you an idea of what that context looks like. All right, I also want to talk a little bit about the cost of the student success fee. We know that $720 a year is a lot of money. That's not insignificant. With the student success fee, that would take the cost of tuition and fees for the year from $9,014 to $9,734. $700 increase. We anticipate, though, that with the student success fee in place, students would be able to average 15 units per semester and finish their degree in 8 semesters. The total cost of your education would be about $38,936. At today's rates, we know that there are fee increases going up that are continuing into the next couple of years, but that's based on next year's tuition and fees. Without the student success fee, the annual tuition and fees would remain $9,014 or, to start at that next year. But if you've registered for your classes, you probably know, and we're all well aware that we cannot offer enough sections to meet student demand. We can't offer enough class sections in order to meet our enrollment targets even. And so what this is going to mean is that probably students are not going to be able to get a full 15 unit schedule. That's going to result in an increased time to graduation. So let's say that that goes up from 8 to 10 semesters, so 4 to 5 years. The total cost of tuition and fees would be $45,070 based on next year's tuition and fees. And while it doesn't feel like a savings, that ends up saving you $6,000 just in tuition and fees over the course of your education. Now, that doesn't take into consideration a year of lost income potential in your future career, or the cost of living, the cost of housing and other sorts of things that you are going to be having to pay students. So with that, I am going to pass it over to Dean Shaw to talk about oversight for this fee.
Thank you, Dean Datweiler, and thanks to everyone who's shown up tonight. We're glad to be able to give this information and look forward to your questions. I I wanted to talk a little bit tonight about how the fees will be monitored, which I think is an important question, how they'll be managed and who has oversight of that. So as it was mentioned by both Dean Datweiler and Dean McGuire, this fee is for academic affairs. So it's the only one on campus that will actually go directly to courses. Other fees that you may have seen passed last summer were in student affairs or the division of the president. They were in other divisions that didn't actually control the courses that are offered to you and allow us to offer salaries to lecturers to open these courses. So with this fee, we would have a committee made up of various people, largely by students that would come from students representing the different colleges, students representing undergraduate and graduates, and then there would also be campus administrators as well. So this fee would be overseen by a committee that is in academic affairs under the office of the provost, who is the vice president for academic affairs. That is her responsibility. She will help oversee this fee, and again, it will be made up by students. We haven't established this committee yet because the fee has not passed. So once the fee passes, we will have to establish a committee. All students will be allowed to select who is on this committee. Some of the members may be ASI, but we hope there will be a lot of members from the student body at large. So what will they do? They will actually oversee the student success fee allocation, which means the deans will have to submit plans or proposals to this committee on what they're going to spend the money on. So this first year, we expect that will be to open additional class sections. But the nice thing about this fee is it will be done annually. So after a couple of years, we feel like we want to put more money towards advising or some of the other things that Dean Datweiler spoke about, helping students with extra courses or peer mentoring, then we can shift that allocation. And then the Student Success Fee Committee will actually approve that shift or not approve it if the deans want to shift and students have decided that's not what they want to spend the money on. So there will be student oversight. And then at the end of each year, there will actually be an audit done by the Student Success Fee Committee, again, made up of students from across campus representing all the different colleges to make sure the money was spent as the dean said it would be spent before the next year's allocation goes forward. So that would be the process. It's a different process, again, because we haven't had a fee like this before, but that's standard of how they're done on other campuses. And so we want to make sure we follow those same rules here. And again, the other thing that's different from the fees that passed before is this ability to change the fee each year slightly to fit the different needs of what students want. So just emphasizing again, it's the only one that's in academic affairs that has been proposed. It's being proposed differently. This is not a alternative consultation like the other fees. This is a referendum, which means all students vote, not just a select number of students. And we can change it slightly each year to fit the needs of what students are asking for at that time. So that's an overview of how this fee will be managed annually. And that's the end of our slideshow. So I think at this time we will open it up for questions.
All right. Thank you, Deans. Hi, everyone. I'm Christina Bellin.